This news program is proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Now Biscuits.
Minister Maru stress on PNG Stock Exchange. Investigations underway on death of 2 soldiers. And St. John's blind workers vacate premises of 29 years. Good evening, you're watching National EMTV News. I'm Grace Papiali. Thank you for joining us. Minister for International Trade and Investment Richard Maru is calling on all Papua New Guinean companies listed in other countries' stock exchange to also list on PNG Stock Exchange. He said doing this will help boost the country's economy moving forward.
According to Minister Maru, the government has come up with a policy to compel public companies or companies funded by public monies to list in the local exchange, whereby the idea is to support the government's reform to diversify PNG's economy beyond the extractive industries by providing potential investors an alternative financial instrument to mobilize private sector financing.
Please get the message out to all our international friends who have got listings in other stock markets where people buy and trade in their shares. They must now move to PNG, especially when they are making profits and operating out of PNG, to offer shares to our citizens by listing on the National Stock Exchange of Papua New Guinea. I'd like to give them a few months to do that while we are working on the law and policy to make it compulsory for them to list if they want to operate and do business in Papua New Guinea.
Minister Maru has called on 17 companies to come forward and immediately list on PNG Exchange, companies that are listed overseas and not in PNG.
Investors who want to invest in the issuance of bonds can be Papua New Guinea companies or can even be international companies that may want to take up investment in these bonds that can be issued.
Minister Maru added that the country will not allow or let companies and international corporations to continue to make profits in PNG while listing in other countries.
Entities, corporate entities needs to come into a market. And we thank the governments for the vision to grow up the market, open up the market, and aim to have market size grow. Our market size is around 150 to, I don't know, offering around that size. As Minister said, market capitalization in the simplest term is the size of the issued shares, not the company's value. Example, BSP's total shares on the market is around almost $1 billion, something like that. That's the size in the other companies, the total shares on issue. That's the value of our market at the moment. So it's around 153 billion.
Minister Maru further added that other companies operating in PNG who are listed above should also consider listing in PNG to raise capital in PNG through the capital market rather than borrowing and to fund their capital expansion plans. Godwin Eki, National EMTV News.
The Department of International Trade and Investment under its Minister Richard Maru today announced the new capital market product known as the debt security or local bonds and is now available on the debt market.
The announcement of the new capital market product, which is now available, applies to companies that have a net asset of 10 million kina, and those who are rated by the independent credit rating agencies will be considered by PNG Stock Exchange to issue bonds. This was announced by Minister Maru in Port Moresby in a media conference today.
Now I'm calling all companies who are interested in issuing a bond to contact the National Stock Exchange and the Securities Commission, and we can work together to ensure the first ones are issued to open the door for many more. And we are looking at other more exciting debt instruments that we may be able to use over the coming weeks and months so that more and more public companies, SMEs, national corporations and multinational corporations can raise funds to grow their businesses using the capital market of Papua New Guinea.
He added that in the coming weeks, the Department of International Trade and Investment will make an announcement of the first company who will issue bonds as the capital market product expands to include debt security.
And our capital market has not been really developed and is being stagnant for quite a time. And we thank the government's vision to open up that market, creating the market platforms for capital raising, which debt instrument is one of them. And we thank the partners that behind this international agencies, like we thank IFC, mainly IFC, for this project with the stock exchange, PNG National Stock Exchange, and ADB for the technical assistance to have this rule.
According to Minister Maru, the target of the national government is to increase the size of the country's capital market in terms of its equity from the current market capitalization of 135 billion kina to over 500 billion kina in the remaining 4 years of the current term.
Digicelia, they are listed in Australia. Why can't they list here so that our people share in the profits? We're not talking about the part of Telstra that's operating in Australia. We're talking about Telstra operations in PNG. Why can't they set up a separate operation, Telstra PNG, and list it so that our people can buy shares? After all, the businesses here, the money is made from this country.
Minister Maru said the target can only be achieved or reached if more and more companies are listed on the PNG Stock Exchange. Godwin Eki, National EMTV News.
Chief of Defence Force Major General Mark Goina says thorough investigations will be conducted to establish the cause of deaths of 2 soldiers killed while in a training in Kupiano in the Central Province.
In a media conference held yesterday at the PNG Defence Force headquarters at Mari Barracks, Major General Mark Goina assured the families and comrades of the 2 deceased that a detailed investigation report will commence soon into the 2 unfortunate deaths.
They will remain there until the investigation team leader is satisfied that we have covered everything from legal to safety issues, logistics, supply system, ammunition control, all those things. We will go through the place where the exercise actually was conducted to look at how the attack was conducted.
Major General Goina said the first members of the investigation team were already on site late Tuesday afternoon to begin investigations on every aspect of the incident. The deceased and another injured were both soldiers on the final assessed exercise for a corporal qualifying course. According to Major General Goina, the other third person was a civilian not involved in the exercise. The investigation team have 14 days to conduct this thorough investigation, and all findings and reports will be provided to the Chief of Defence Force, Major General Mark Goina, and to the immediate families. Lindy Suharupa, National EMTV News.
President for Vanapa Brown LLG Wayne Iorive has described the Central Provincial Assembly Induction Workshop hosted for the past 2 days as a vital forum that will elevate them to write their proposals, submissions and improve in other areas to contribute meaningfully.
The elected leaders of rural local level government, president and appointed members of the Provincial Assembly attended the workshop to help strengthen the role of the Provincial Assembly and administration. President for Vanapa Brown LLG confirmed that the workshop has clearly explained to them the government systems on how to develop their districts, wards and LLGs accordingly.
During this session, since yesterday, we've learned a lot where we know there are systems, governance systems, but unfortunately all governance systems are all unexplained And during the workshop, we have really found out where we can gain from, capitalize on, in order to help back in our ward levels, up to our LLG levels, and into the provincial level as well.
He says they will impart the knowledge and experience that they have gained from this workshop to other provincial government members who did not attend.
How to activate areas where we can gain from the ward level, and that is by means of finance, means of assistance from the department sectors themselves, up to the political level. Now that we know and we have learned where to gauge our views from, our worries from, and I'm pretty sure that this workshop will now elevate us in writing our proposals, our submissions, and whatever we're thinking of to help develop our areas will be made easy through this workshop.
The president for Aroma LLG, Desmond Byra, also shared similar sentiments, saying it was an eye-opener for all of them to understand their roles and responsibilities.
We come to know this knowledge that we have to impart that right down to the districts and LLGs, and maybe to our ward levels. We, as a provincial government, we made a resolution that we're going to adopt this into our provincial assembly.
This induction workshop was hosted and funded by UNDP that commenced on Tuesday and ended yesterday. Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
St. John's, Papua New Guinea services of the blind workers have been instructed to vacate their premises that they have been occupying for the last 29 years. Director of Blind Services Ruth Sankoi says after this eviction, those with visually impaired vision will have no place to go for rehabilitation services.
Director Ruth Sengol said the eviction has caused a lot of inconvenience, especially with the movement of rehabilitation materials. She claims the land this facility is built on belongs to the state and therefore belongs to the Department of Health. However, a court order issued by the National St. John's Council have ordered them to vacate the premises, stating they were illegally living in the property.
So they took us to court, Oximicola court. Because we were caretakers, me and my family, we were caretakers here. The court question on all our St. John ambulances court case. So we lost it. Then we received a court order to move out of here now.
This facility for the blind implements the UN's components of community-based rehabilitation, including health, education, livelihood, social and empowerment, as alluded to by the director.
I served this organization for 30 years. I help and work with them. All the blind people to sit down, look at us like this. How can they don't have to hurt?
According to Mrs. Sengol, several appeals through letters were sent to relevant authorities, including government leaders. However, to date, they have not received any response. She says they have no other place to keep their braille books and other rehabilitation materials for the blind, and that is her biggest concern. Meantime, a representative of the National St. John's Council of PNG has released a statement clarifying that this is the court's ruling, hence the blind services workers must vacate the premises for St. John's to use. The statement further said that St. John's has made available an office building for all rehabilitation materials for the blind to be kept for an appropriate organization to deliver such services. For now, services of the blind will have to be halted until such time the NGO organization finds another place to set up. Mrs. Sengol is now appealing to government entities and NGOs to assist in providing a space for them to set up and continue their services to visually impaired persons. Lindy Suharupa, National EMTV News.
National EMTV News continues after the break with more stories. Stay with us. You're watching National MTV News. The National Agriculture Quarantine and Inspection Authority, or NAQIA, will host a 4-day workshop next week in Ley, Morobe Province, where stakeholders from government, private sector, and donor government agencies will congregate to finalize the framework and construction of the country's first ever biosecurity bill, first since decolonization.
The national government under Prime Minister James Marape is very keen on providing biosecurity cover for PNG and not just in national security for the nation. Biosecurity, on the other hand, also involves safety of a nation, but usually that refers to measures aimed at preventing the introduction and the spread of harmful organisms to animals and plants in order to minimize the risk of transmission of infectious disease. NAQIA Managing Director Mr. Joel Alu says it will be a historical event signifying another leap turn in our journey since independence. Agriculture Minister and Goroka MP Aye Tambua will open the workshop on Tuesday. He is determined to bring the bill to Parliament for enactment. The business of biosecurity in PNG lies primarily and is a mandate function of NAQIA by law. The goals on this new biosecurity legislation are to establish legally enforcement mechanism and principles to prevent the risk of introduction and spread of pests and disease and protect the health of humans, animals and plants and natural resources generally. Esther Gane, National MTV News.
Governor for Western Highlands Province, Wairapa, has expressed concerns on the ownership of the province's properties and assets. He expressed these concerns during the Provincial Executive Council meeting on Tuesday.
Governor Wairapa clarified that when he first took office, it was noticeable that all of Western Highlands Province's assets, including subsidiary companies, were operated by certain individuals.
We are hearing rumors and that there's a lot of equipment belongs to the Western Highlands Province government. They're still in the hands of people. As governor, I would appeal to the former governor and the staff, whoever was managing all this, if they can give us back, if they can even tell us if there's any assets for all these companies, if there's any properties for all these companies, if they can give back to the province.
Governor Rapa told the Provincial Executive Council members that Western Highlands Provincial Development Corporation, which is owned by the provincial government, only owns 40% of the total shares. 60% of the shares are now owned by Western Highlands Schools Foundation. During the meeting, the PEC members have questioned why these transfers have been made to several individuals, hence called on those persons to come forward and tell the people of Western Highlands Province how they acquired those shares.
That we need to restore 100% back to the people of Western Highlands Province. And it is very, very urgent. Within this remaining few weeks, we need to restore, give back what's for the people.
Governor Rapa is now calling on the leaders and elites of the province to return the 60% shares that rightfully belong to the provincial government and the people of Western Highlands Province. Lindy Suharupa, National MTV News.
Meanwhile, Governor Rapa has also questioned the purchase of the Rui plantation, adding that the sale of the plantation was under some shadiest dealing as claimed by the governor.
This is quite serious in nature of a plantation. It's been just given away for 100,000. I don't think it's a right thing they did. And it's in some ways, if you see, they must have given this plantation to someone under some, suspicious circumstances. So we cannot say that it's a proper sale. It is some kind of a suspicious thing that they did. Operating in Western Highlands Province, under the name of Western Islands Provincial Government through under some kind of names. But they do not represent this provincial government. But these are some kind of scams that this provincial government money has been going out in this kind of scams for too long.
It is important that all public servants undergo an induction training before being certified permanent public servants in the public sector. Over 50 participants from National Cultural Commission participated in a 2-week public service induction training run by the Pacific Institute of Leadership and Governance. Today, those participants graduated and are now certified public servants who will go out and serve the people of PNG.
This training equips the participants with skills and knowledge needed to better serve the people. JJ Era, the human resource personnel for NCC, elaborated on the initiative in taking this next big step in the ministry.
We just recently did the recruitment and selection for the National Cultural, received the approval from the Department of Personnel Management, and we did our first batch recruitment selection. So this majority of the officers that are attending for this induction program this time is majority of them are new hires. We got them from the recruitment and selection. So it is very important that we inducted them to be certified public servant. The most of the public servants and the public services they require is the consistency and the precedence to work in honesty.
Participant Moi Karukuru gives her take on the training.
So for me personally, this has been a milestone achievement, I should say. And most of the public servants, even though they say the word public servants, but they do not really know the meaning of being a public servant. And public servant, after we went through this induction, for me personally, is how you conduct yourself back in the office.
This was the advice from Program Manager for PILAG, Jack Kwa, to the new graduates of the public sector.
Okay, the advice that I would give them is now that they have completed the induction program, they are fully fledged public servants. And when they go out to the organization and the public service as a whole, they must be change agents, try to change the culture of the public sector that we are known of.
These new graduates now understand the importance of the role they play in society. Amanda Ilaitia, National EMTV News.
Southern Regional District's administrators and officers who have attended the 4-day workshop on WASH Monitoring Information System conducted by the Department of National Planning and Monitoring with support from DFAT Water Aid received their certificates today on the last day of the workshop.
After 4 days of training on the WASH Monitoring Information System, the participants were presented certificates and were told by the DNPM and Water Aid to start using their training when they make it back to their respective districts.
So, you were testing for water pastor?
The main man, and we have the sample bag.
The Southern Regional MIS workshop saw provincial and district administrators, including their officers, coming in from Northern, Milan Bay, Western, Gulf and Central Province.
Start promoting.
The team had 3 days of theory and a day of practical collecting and testing water samples in Kuriva of Hurikoare district in Central Province. Titus Guran, District Administrator for Goilala in Central Province, gave his feedback on the workshop so far.
Central Aid, I'd like to thank the facilitators and a lot of things that we interacted and learned of each other. The program itself is very, very important, and I would suggest that much of our planning, what we learn here, even for education, health, all other sectors, I think we need to start from the baseline
And I think that's the way forward for the government.
The participants will be traveling back to their respective districts and provinces and said they will start off their WASH monitoring systems. Cynthia Maku, National EMTV News.
And now looking at the Nest Fund market report, the Kina closed unchanged at $0.2800 US in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina was buying $0.2725 US, $0.4066 Australian dollars, $0.2434 euro, 39.02 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York closed, gold is trading lower, coffee closed lower, cocoa closed lower, copper closed lower, palm oil closed higher, crude oil is trading higher, copper closed lower. On the stock market, the Dow Jones closed lower, the ASX 200 is trading lower, the All Ordinaries is trading lower. National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. You're watching National EMTV News. Moving to overseas news now, and in Canberra, we're hearing about a huge wave of people hoping to move to Australia on parent visas. A backlog means some people may now be forced to wait up to 50 years.
This is an issue, this wait, something that migrant communities all around Australia have known about for years and have been talking about it for years. But it's only recently become more prominent in headlines because of a migration review that was conducted recently that showed just the extent of it. Wait times could be anywhere from 20 years to 50 years if you want to bring your parent around here. And if you ask migrants what that's like, they'll tell you it's extremely frustrating. There's a great deal of uncertainty when it comes to bringing your parents to Australia. This has created a remarkable backlog. We're talking about one that ballooned from 35,000 in 2010 to 120,000 in 2022. And as you can imagine, if you're a new migrant, or better yet, if you're considering migrating to Australia, then this is not the sort of thing you'll be very happy to hear. And this gap might be tarnishing Australia's reputation as an attractive option for skilled migrants, because having your parents with you is not a luxury. It can be a huge game changer. Migrants told us, and many of our viewers will probably know this, that having your parents around could make all the difference between a successful, stable settlement into a new country, a new system, a new culture, a new way of life, and making the difference between that and a pretty turbulent, frustrating time trying to settle in and figure your way around the country. Currently, we have two pathways to getting your parents here. One costs $6,000, and the wait time is about 40 years or so.
A man has been charged with the murder of a 30-year-old woman at Bexley in Sydney.
Well, Karina, a crime scene remains in place here on Unwin Street after a 30-year-old woman was killed. Emergency services were called here around 6 o'clock last night following reports that a woman was found unresponsive. Now, when police arrived, they arrested and charged 39-year-old Ahmed Hodroj with murder and took him to Kogarah Police Station. He has been refused bail and will front Sutherland Local Court later today. Now, police will allege that the pair were known to one another, but more will unfold in court today.
Courtney, how are neighbours reacting this morning?
Well, neighbours are understandably shocked that something like this would happen in what they've described as quite a quiet street. Now, lots of them have said that they didn't hear much of an uproar or disturbance last night around 6 o'clock, with many saying that they were actually out at the time, but when they returned they were shocked and surprised by the police presence here. They've described their neighbours as polite and quiet, kind of those people who would keep to themselves. We spoke to their immediate next door neighbour Max a short time ago. Here's what he had to say.
They're actually nice people, like nothing really like bad or anything. Just every time I used to see them, just hello, yeah, normal.
They seemed like just a normal family. I've been here about 4 years, and they always have people over, coming and going. I'm aware that both of these houses belong to the same family. They're always working on cars and boats just like anyone else, just, normal people.
Now, like he said, he's described the family as a normal sort of family, but more of that will unfold in court today. Paramedics attended the scene to render assistance to the woman, but unfortunately her injuries were too severe and she couldn't be saved. So Mr. Ahmed will front court today, local Sutherland court later this morning.
Hundreds of Palestinian families in the West Bank city of Jenin are now homeless after a 2-day Israeli military operation.
I'm in Jenin refugee camp and I want to show you some of the damage that's been left behind here after 2 days of fighting. It was earlier this week that the Israeli military launched a major operation here in the Jenin refugee camp in the West Bank. The roads have been absolutely destroyed. They were ripped up by these big Israeli bulldozers. Israel says they were looking for explosive roadside bombs, but it's left this massive damage that you can see. In the same time, it's also ripped up water lines and power lines. So now a lot of this camp doesn't have access to power and electricity. Over the 2 days, they say they were looking for Palestinian militants and there was a lot of gunfighting that took place. Most of the homes here now are littered with this, as you can see, bullet holes after bullet holes, evidence of what has been 2 days of brutal and bloody fighting. At least 12 Palestinians were killed. Israel says the majority of them were militants. A number of them were teenagers, and one Israeli soldier was killed during the fighting as well. But there are thousands of people in this camp who didn't take place in the fighting. We can just hear some gunfire happening at the moment, but that's a bit away from us. As I was saying, thousands of people here who didn't take place in the fighting, and this is what they've been left with. They say that they are now the victims of collective punishment by Israel.
I worked a lot. I suffered a lot to build this house. I made it beautiful. To come back and see my house destroyed like this is something I can't imagine. My kids and my wife, I haven't brought them here because I know how difficult this is going to be on them.
Frontline Ukrainian troops have told the ABC those questioning the pace of their counter-offensive don't understand the situation on the ground.
Right now, Ukrainian troops are locked in what could be a pretty long and drawn-out battle to win back territory. After what was a tough week by President Zelensky's own admission, the last couple of days have been much more fruitful, according to the Ukrainian military. In the east, they say that they are having partial success to the north and the south of Bakhmut, where there have been some extremely heavy battles, but it is slow going. Now, why is it slow? Well, because Russia's had 16 months to build their defences, and it's used that time pretty well. Ukrainian tanks and troops can't just advance wherever they like. Russia's dug big anti-tank ditches and they've booby-trapped the landscape with mines and built several lines of trenches. We've been speaking with Battalion Commander Ihor Shepetin, who came under extremely heavy fire while trying to hold Bakhmut for Ukraine. He says people who say the counter-offensive is too slow perhaps don't understand the reality on the ground.
People who sit on the sofa and watch it on TV, maybe they want faster victories, but war is a very complicated, scary and bloody process. People lose the most important thing, their lives. The enemy is also training and is more prepared than when the armed aggression began.
Ukrainian troops are also pushing hard in the south, trying to get closer to places like Berdyansk and Melitopol to cut Russia off from Crimea. The mayor of Melitopol, which is under Russian occupation, says it's frustrating that weapons from the west seem to be coming so gradually.
Please give us enough military equipment, enough long-range rockets, give us fighting jets, we ask. And while our partners think about it, Russians didn't think, they built. And we together give them 1.5 year opportunities to build it. And now we have a greater problem.
There are cautious hopes that visit by Indonesia's president to the rest of the region of Papua could help speed up the release of a New Zealand man held hostage since February.
Joko Widodo has been to Papua before, but this visit really is in focus. It's now 5 months since Philip Mark Mertens was kidnapped. The charter plane pilot flew into the remote Central Highlands. He was just there for a quick job, but it was enough time on an airstrip for pro-independence rebels to kidnap him and destroy his plane. In the months since, they have released multiple videos. They initially said they'll only release him if Indonesia grants Papua independence. In April, Indonesia's military made a botched effort to try and rescue Mr. Mertens, in which 6 soldiers were killed. So you can see why Joko Widodo's visit is being seen by some as an opportunity to re-energise the negotiation process. Now, something interesting this week, the police chief in Papua says he's prepared an amount of money as a possible ransom. The head of Indonesia's military said that he's not opposed to paying a ransom, but a spokesperson for the pro-independence rebels denied that they are seeking money. Nonetheless, there have been some positive comments from them welcoming a pledge by Joko Widodo to seek peaceful negotiations to try and get Philip Mark Mertens released. Throughout this whole time, his family here in Indonesia, wife and son, they've been receiving consular support from New Zealand's government. A spokesperson for the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs says that it is continuing to work with Indonesian officials to seek a peaceful outcome.
National EMTV News continues after the break with Trukai Sports. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. And Papua New Guinean mixed martial arts fighter Fidelis Pillai is the only MMA fighter who would be representing the country on an international bout to Miami next month.
Mixed martial artist Fidelis Pillai is on par to represent the country with pride as he takes on his preparation on another level in anticipation on the upcoming international bout in Miami come July. In an exclusive interview with MTV's Trukai Sports, he said his journey started back in 2012 at amateur level. From 2015, he took on professional fighting with World Kickboxing Federation. This year, he is proud to say that he is the only mixed martial artist who will be representing Papua New Guinea in the Mixed Martial Arts Code.
I'm the only one that will represent the country from MMA. I'll be playing mixed martial arts and I'm looking forward for that.
He said his ambition is to learn from his experience once he partakes in Miami and bring back the skills to teach upcoming mixed martial artists in the country.
Me like looking, comparing outside the world, looking what's happening outside, come back and look PNG so we can come back, and we can motivate all youths, change the mindset long all, let's try do something more better for life. Rather than us going around doing all these sorts of this, like drug, something, and listen. There's some ways where we can go succeed in life.
PNG Athletics Union has been busy over the last few months in preparation for the 2023 Pacific Games.
Now, in preparations for the 2023 Pacific Games, which will take place later this year in Solomon Islands, Honiara, the PNG Athletics Union recently hosted a junior athletics tournament here at the Sejong Stadium. Now, also in preparations for the Pacific Games, the PNG Athletics Union has been training its elite athletes in Goroka at the National Institute of Sports. Now, the athletes were also joined by US-based athletes, where a total of 20-plus athletes are currently in training. Now, as per advice from the PNG Athletics Union President Tony Green, says that final team will not be announced until after the Justification Committee sits down with PNG Athletics Union to iron out who will be the final athletes to represent PNG at this year's Pacific Games in Solomon Islands. Godwin Eki, Trukai Sports.
The PNG NRL will play its round 13 matches this coming weekend, with the games to start this Saturday.
Now, this coming weekend will witness round 13 of the National Rugby League competition in the country. Now, the games will kick off this coming Saturday in various parts of the country and conclude in the nation's capital in Port Moresby at the Sejong Stadium. Now, currently, the teams that are leading the competition in Pool A, we have Engam Mioks in Fair Sport, followed by Lace Necks Tigers and Mendi Muruks. In Pool B, the Agmak Rabal Gurias are leading the competition, followed by the Croton Hela Wigmen and the Central Dabaris. Now, the hot favourites, the NCDC Port Moresby Vipers, are currently on the fourth spot in the National Rugby League competition. Now, as of this coming weekend, the National Rugby League competition will only have 4 more weekends to go to complete its regular rounds before the competition heads into its grand final rounds. Godwin Eki, Trukai Sports.
And in soccer, in the Women's League for the Highlands Conference, round 2 games will take place this weekend. This Saturday, we'll see Kagoerave FC take on Kuri FC. Blue Comols FC will go head-to-head with Mount Hagen FC, and Southern Highlands Province FC will challenge Momas FC at the Kimininga Police Barracks Oval in Mount Hagen. Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To overseas sports now, and in AFL, the AFL is working with the E-Safety Commissioner and police to remove dozens of explicit images of current and former players illegally leaked online.
The AFL Players Association says many of them have already been taken down from the original link where they were posted. They've spoken to many of the players who've fallen victim this morning. Many of them say these images are fake. The CEO, Paul Marsh of the AFL Players Association, spoke to the ABC a little bit earlier.
I don't know how, whether players have been hacked, whether players have shared images, with trusted people that have somehow ended up in this situation. I think really encouragingly, our understanding is that Google have now taken the drive down, so hopefully that limits the damage. If people out there have copies of these photos, we'd urge you not to share them. This is really sensitive, private stuff, and I hope that we can, limit the damage, because I can only imagine what those players are going through.
We've also heard from Jimmy Bartel, a football great, this morning, speaking to 9 Radio. This is how he reacted.
It's gross. It's understanding that majority of the images are fake, made up, staged, all sorts of stuff. It's someone grubby who hopefully will very quickly gets caught.
Another milestone for Novak Djokovic as he ranked up Grand Slam victory, number 350, dispatching Australia's Jordan Thompson.
The defending champ was given a thorough workout, though, by the Aussie, but always looked in control when it mattered the most, winning the crucial moments on his way to the 6-3, 7-6, 7-5 win. That moves him into the third round. Alexei Popyrin also went down in a gruelling 5-setter. On the women's side of the draw, Iga Swiatek, the world number 1, had another dominant win. She goes through to the third round, chasing her first Wimbledon title, while Australia's Daria Saville, who's back after a lengthy layoff, went down to local hope Katie Bolter in a protest-interrupted 2-set win.
And that ends Trukai Sports. The Money Plus weather report is next. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus, with you always.
The weather forecast for the next 24 hours in the southern region: Port Moresby City, cloudy periods with possible showers and thunderstorms. Papandeta, cloudy periods with some showers. In the Momase region, Ley City, partly cloudy with few showers. Vanimo, cloudy periods with some showers. In the New Guinea Islands region, Lorengau, cloudy periods with some showers. Buka, rain showers and possible thunderstorms. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen City, few showers and possible thunderstorms. Mendi and Wabeg, cloudy periods with few showers and possible thunderstorms.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus, with you always.
And that wraps up the news, sports and weather for Thursday, the 6th of July, 2023. From all of us here, pleasant viewing. Good night.
This news program was proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Gold Nuggets.